My name is Matty. I am 28 years old and I'm quite clearly Asian, but I was born here and I've lived here my entire life in London, the United Kingdom. My father's side of the family is from Malaysia, but he was born here, so he talks very much like me. And my mother was born in China and she came over when she was 21 or 22 years old, so she's mostly lost her Chinese accent. But there are still moments when, if she gets quite annoyed, she'll revert back to her Chinese accent. We try not to annoy her too much. I just want to talk about how I just want to talk about my experience growing up in the UK as a British born Asian, as someone who was always outcast. I never quite fit in anywhere. And that's still even to this day, although it's things are a lot better now. I'm very happy being in my own company. I'm very happy not fitting in because I realized very recently that I was never meant to fit in. I was always meant to stand out, and that's a superpower. You know, if someone says that you're not like everyone else, then great. Like that is your USP or your unique selling point. But when I was growing up, the school that I went to was predominantly white. I was the only Chinese boy in my year. I was the only Asian boy in my year. There were a few Indian people. I could probably count on like one hand. Very, very few. There was very few like Arab, Middle Eastern people, and there was one or two people of African origin, but everyone else was white. And this was also the case when I went to holiday clubs, when I went to church, although church was a little bit more multicultural, but I was always in the minority. And especially when most of my friends or most of the people I grew up with were white. I say friends loosely because I didn't really have any friends growing up. But because I looked different, I never quite fit in. And children can be very cruel. And I grew up believing that my eyes were subhuman because the kids at school would make fun of them all the time, just like, you know, that, oh, Chinese, Japanese, oh, look at your eyes, can you see through them? Like, legitimately, can you see through them? And granted, I was slightly myopic at the time, as in I still am short-sighted, but I can still see, and my eyes aren't small enough that I can't see. And I recently learned that the reason why my eyes are this way is because of, you know, adaptations to, in the past when my ancestors used to live in the desert in like Mongolia and China, it's to like keep the sand out of my eye. So that's why my eyes are hooded, that's why they're monolid. But because the kids at school would make fun of it and say I look sleepy and tired all the time, I did think that they were subhuman. I hated my eyes, and it took me the longest time to come to accept them for the way that they are. And I'm glad I didn't, you know, consider something like double eyelid surgery, because I know some Asian people choose it because they think it's the standard of beauty. But actually, I think having hooded eyes or monolid eyes is better, to be honest with you. And it's taken me the longest time to realize that. But another thing the kids would say is, you're so yellow. One kid said to me that I look like I'm an extra from The Simpsons, which actually was pretty funny at the time, but it's incredibly offensive. And that wasn't even a white dude, it was a Muslim dude, so I don't know why he was so mean to me, but anyway, I think he was trying to deflect because probably people were making fun of him as well. But that was in secondary school, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. When I was in holiday clubs and when I was in school, whenever or if ever there was another Chinese or Asian Oriental person, people would be like, oh, are you brother and sister? Are you related? I'm like, piss off, I'm not related to this person. I mean, I'm sure they're really nice people, but yeah, that happened a lot. People would make funny comments like, "Do your parents work at a takeaway?" Oh my! This is my coping mechanism because I look back and there's quite a lot of trauma. So the only way to deal with it is to laugh at it. What else would people say? They would make up Chinese phrases like "hello, wang 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 wang," and that lasted all the way up until sixth form of secondary school. Again, I was a minority in secondary school. There was two other Chinese boys in my year. One of them barely spoke English, like he had a proper strong accent. The other one was trying really hard to get rid of his accent, but he still kind of had it. I am an Englishman, but I am the Englishman in a Chinaman's body. So people are still shocked even to this day that I talk the way that I talk. When they hear me on the phone and they see me in person, they're like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to sound like that." And for the longest time, I wished I was white. A lot of my friends were white. A lot of the girls that I fancied were white, and I saw myself as white. I wasn't proud of my Asian heritage. I was Asian self-hating, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of that was because of the things that happened while I was growing up. A lot of the prejudices, a lot of the racism. And this isn't meant to be a sob story. I just want to share my experience, what it was like growing up as a bit of an outcast. And my friends that I have today who are half Asian also experienced this. They had it a little bit different because they were too white to be Asian and too Asian to be white. So I totally, I understand that they didn't fit in either, but neither did I. And it's hard growing up when not everyone was prejudiced. Not a lot of people weren't. A lot of people didn't see my race or my skin color or how my eyes were as any reason to treat me differently. I still had a lot of friends who were white, and to this day, a lot of people who are white. My girlfriend is white. A lot of my closest friends are white. So a lot of things have changed now. But when I went to uni, things changed drastically. There was never any mention of my race. It was very multicultural, metropolitan. But in terms of school, when you're younger and you're a little bit more narrow-minded, especially in primary school, and I think it was more just ignorance, just not knowing, as opposed to pure malice. But I definitely still get that whole, "Oh, you don't sound how I expected you, you know, you don't look how I expect you to look," after being on the phone with me. And for the longest time I saw this as a disadvantage, but finally now I'm seeing it as a USP or a unique selling point, because I am in a minority, and in the minority I'm a minority among minorities, because there is no one that I've met or seen online that sounds exactly like me, that looks exactly like me, and that has similar tendencies, mannerisms, hobbies, interests. And I suppose that makes us all unique, but especially for me, being a British born Asian, I I also think I look a bit more masculine than a lot of other Asian men. I don't know why this is. I think my father has a very strong bone structure, and I started weight training when I was 20, so I had a spike in testosterone. So that might be why, partially genetic. I'm not going to go into too much detail as to why I look the way I look. I mean, it is what it is. I am well aware that I have privilege attached to the way that I look, as by the fact that I am modeling now. So I'm not going to pretend that's, I'm not going to not acknowledge that, if that makes sense. But I really start to see the way I am as a unique selling point. And I think people should embrace that the way, I think people should embrace the way they are and how they're unique, and not be self-hating, because I hate the fact that I was self-hating for so long. I hate that I wasn't proud of my Asian heritage. I hate that I was inadvertently prejudiced against my own race because of the way that I was raised. And I'm so glad that I no longer see things this way. I'm so glad that the world is multicultural. I'm so happy whenever I see an interracial relationship. You know, the other day, I want to say the other day, the other month I was in Brighton with my girlfriend and we saw another couple where the guy was Asian and the girlfriend was brunette, very pretty brunette. I think she was Polish, but we like looked at each other and we acknowledged, like that's so cool to see. And I saw another like blonde with this black dude, and I just love that. I just love that. I think there is so much beauty in interracial relationships, interracial friendships. Like I don't see race as a big thing anymore. Like, but it does make me happy when I see that. And let's be honest, mixed race children are some of the most attractive. They become some of the most attractive adults. Um, so yeah, like that was just my experience growing up. I know the world is constantly changing, and I am excited to see how it looks in 10 years' time. I hope that my children, who will probably be mixed race, will not have to endure the things that I had to endure. And I don't think they will. I think it'll be very different. I think society is becoming a lot more accepting of people that look a bit different, because when I was growing up, there were hardly any Asians in the film industry. We were always stereotyped. That is changing now. Henry Golding is a heartthrob. I know he's half Chinese, but you're getting a lot of more Asian male leads who, and especially like K-pop, and even in modeling 10 years ago, the standard of beauty was a white male. If you were a male, obviously different for females, but if you're a white male with light colored eyes and dark brown hair, you were very attractive. If you're Asian, you weren't, or you weren't seen as that. But now things are changing, and there are a lot more Asian models, a lot more Indian, African models, and I'm just so happy to see that. It just fills my heart with joy. There are more and more interracial relationships and marriages and partnerships, and it's just, yeah, for the first time, I'm filled with a lot of hope and optimism for the future. And yeah, if you have any questions, drop it down in the comments. Are you someone who experienced prejudice and racism growing up? Have you seen how things have changed? So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Please comment, follow me on Instagram, DM me what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from you. Peace out.